What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bring your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. So, end of March 2nd to be exact, and the Nets they're looking better. You know, that's the truth of the matter. They're looking better. They did what I actually wanted them to do. They won 3 of their last 5 games. Even though they didn't do it the way I anticipated, they did beat the Lakers, the Nuggets, and then they actually beat the Mavericks. Now, going game by game, I mean, the Lakers game, they dominated most of the game. Lakers went on a run at the end, but overall, it was a pretty convincing win by the Nets. First game with Thaddeus Young. He is everything I expected him to be and some. He's a very athletic player, a great rebounder, a good low post scorer. He's quick. He can finish. He's great. He's been phenomenal. He was great in that game. He was great. The whole team was great in the game against the Nuggets. The Nets blew them out. Then the game against the Pelicans was a very ugly game by both teams, but I really thought the Nets should have won that game. But they just kind of couldn't execute well down the stretch, and they ended up falling just short of beating a injured injured Pelicans team. I said Nuggets. I meant Pelicans. The game against the Pelicans, they were playing well down the stretch and just kind of fell apart at the end. And that was a team that was injured. They had no Ryan Anderson, no Anthony Davis, no Drew Holiday. Yet the Nets couldn't win. That one was very upsetting to me because that was a game I really felt the Nets should have won. And then the same thing about the next game after that against the Rockets. They were right there the whole way. One of the worst calls I ever saw with that, Markel Brown foul, which, by the way, I'm going to talk about Markel Brown in a second, right after I go through this little, looking at the games, talk about him for a second. Before I get there, that was one of the worst calls ever. When freaking 3 steps, James Harden jumps on Markel Brown's back and they call foul on him. Oh, that was the turning point of the game. Terrible, terrible call. Nets could have won that game too, but they didn't. But then they managed to bounce back well against the Mavericks and beat the Mavericks. And so they did end up winning 3 of their last 5 games, which was what I was hoping they would do. Instead of, I anticipated to lose to Dallas. Instead, they beat Dallas. But to be honest, they really could have won 5 straight. If they had executed better down the stretch against the Pelicans, they could have easily won that game. And if there wasn't that really terrible BS call on Markel Brown at the end of the Houston game, they could have won that one too. But overall, the thing I'm taking away from these 5 games is the Nets look good. Good. I mean, Darren Williams, he looks great. I don't know if he had time to rest his ankles or he's just decided to stop being such a piece of crap, but he looks very good, very spry, especially against the game in Dallas. He was phenomenal. And he's passing the ball more, and he's making the proper plays, and he's a big reason why this team is playing better. Not only that, Brook Lopez has played well, except for the game against Dallas where he kind of didn't play that well. On all the other games, Brook Lopez has played phenomenally well as well. Thaddeus Young has been fantastic. And of course, though, the big thing is the play of Markel Brown. Now, if you remember, which I doubt any of you do, because I doubt any of you guys actually was watching NetsBoy episodes that long ago. At the very beginning of this season of NetsBoy, if you want to call this a season, the second round going of NetsBoy, I talked about Markel Brown, and I said, Net fans are going to love this guy. I am going to love this guy. I think anybody who's anyone is going to love this guy. And this was just for me watching him play some highlights at Oklahoma State. I watched him play at Oklahoma State a couple times, and I just watched a video of him, and I said, this kid is the real deal. Now, that being said, I said it depends on how much work he puts in. He's kind of a tweener. He's not quite, a point guard, not quite a shooting guard, but he's got athleticism, unbelievable. I mean, did you see that dunk? Did you see that dunk against the Pelicans? That 360 dunk? That was great. And it kind of makes you wonder, they put Mason Plumlee in the slam dunk contest. Wouldn't you want to see Markel Brown in the slam dunk contest? I know I would. Maybe next year. But, he's a really solid player. Corey Jefferson's also proven to be a very solid player. You know, everyone always talks about, oh, the Nets, they trade away all their draft picks and they get no good young players. Look at what the Nets have done since they've traded away those draft picks. First year they traded away those draft picks, they brought in Mirza Teletovic as a young rookie player who played phenomenally and playing well. Next season, you know, did they do anything that season? No, not really. They didn't really do anything the second season. Second season, they didn't really do anything. But now the third season, here, they got bring in Bojan Bogdanovic, a really good young player, even though I'm not a huge fan of him. But now they also traded for the rights and drafted Markel Brown and Corey Jefferson, and they brought those guys in. Look at this young. Oh wait, I'm being stupid. Mason Plumlee. How could I forget about him? So yeah, first they signed Mirza Teletovic. Okay, they didn't draft him. They didn't need to. They signed him free agency. That was a good move. He was a good young player. The next year, they draft Mason Plumlee. He was one of the steals of the draft. How great was he? The next season now, they draft Bojan. I mean, they finally signed Bojan Bogdanovic, and they traded and drafted Markel Brown and Corey Jefferson. Look, everyone wants to get on the Nets' case about they traded away their future. Look at their future. How could they trade away all those draft picks? Look at their future now. Mirza Teletovic, who, yes, he's out with the blood clots in his lungs, but he's 28 years old. He's still going to be in the league for like a good solid years. Bojan Bogdanovic is 25. He has tons of upside. Markel Brown, Corey Jefferson, Mason Plumlee. These are all young, good core players. You put them around Brook Lopez, who's 27 years old himself, or 26 years old himself. Thaddeus Young, who's 26 years old himself. And you're going to go out there and say the Nets forfeited their future? Look, no one's going to go out there and say that those deals ended up working in the Nets' favor. No one. Trading away their draft picks for Joe Johnson, in that Hawks deal, kind of, yeah. Trading away the draft pick that became Damian Lillard for Joe Wallace, that really blew up in the Nets' face. And trading away more of the Nets draft picks to bring in Garnett and Pierce and all those guys, and they have no one left to show for it, though they did end up getting, ultimately, like I said before, Jarrett Jack, because they traded Jason Terry for Marcus Thornton, who then they traded Marcus Thornton for Jarrett Jack, and they got Thaddeus Young by, trading Garnett for him. Overall, though, they didn't do anything to their future. Yes, they could have gotten maybe slightly more younger and better players, but the Nets are not a team that doesn't have a future. They have a legitimate set of good young players to build around if this team were to not make the playoffs, or if this team were not to be able to retool. So, I got off on a little rant, but this just was my point, because about Markel Brown, he was the 46th, I think, or something like that, 44th overall pick in the draft. And now he's playing very well. He needs to improve a little bit more on the offensive end to be a little bit more consistent, but very good athletic player, very good defender, great rebounder, great leaper. He's like a 40-inch vertical leap. He's phenomenal. And then look at Corey Jefferson. He was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the 60th overall pick, and the Nets got him, and he's playing very well for the Nets as well. I mean, Mason Plumlee was a steal of the draft. Mirza Teletovic and Bojan Bogdanovic wasn't even on any other NBA team's radars. Well, they were, but not as much, as the Nets when they were trying to sign them free agency. Don't be hating on the Nets for trading away draft picks. And I'm a I'm under the assumption that draft picks are a little overrated. Now, if you get a top draft pick, absolutely you keep that. I say top 5, you could strike gold there, but I've always been more under the impression about I would rather trade away a draft pick to get a proven player who can continually to help my team, which is obviously what the Nets did when they traded for Gerald Wallace. Maybe would have changed that up a little bit because Gerald Wallace, I think anyone could have told he's on the downside of his career. I maybe would not have done that, but for an example, if I traded away a draft pick to bring in a player like Rudy Gay, who I'm a huge Rudy Gay fan, and it meant trading away a top 5 pick, I would do it because Rudy Gay's a proven player who's 28 years old, who's going to be good for 5 more years probably. Why wouldn't you do it until you bring it up? Like, I mean, look at teams that continue to tank to get draft picks. Look at the 76ers right now. They tanked for 2 years now, and they've got nothing but a whole bunch of young talent that will never develop, or maybe one or two of those players will develop into something decent. Everyone else will just kind of be mediocre. The truth is, you don't know who's going to be good in a draft. You never really do. There's no such thing as a sure good pick. And what I think the Nets scouting team has done a great job is getting the diamonds in the rough. Remember when they traded for their draft pick and got Marshawn Brooks with the 25th overall pick? That was a great move, and I still think Marshawn Brooks could have been a very good NBA player if he got his head on straight, but that was a great move. They go and they sign Thaddeus, what teams didn't expect. That was a great move. They get Mason Plumlee in the 22nd or something overall pick. That was a great move. They go and they trade for and the draft rights for Markel, drafting Markel, Brown, and Corey Jefferson, the 45th or 40 whatever and 60th overall pick. That was a great move. They bring in Bojan Bogdanovic. That should be a great move. And these are all not top 5 players. These aren't top 5 draft picks. Hell, these aren't even lottery picks. These aren't even top 15 picks. So it's just proven my point more and more what I think about young players and draft picks being a bit overrated. That being said, I'm not going to dismiss the fact that, draft picks are not important because, you can strike gold in a draft. I mean, Brook Lopez was drafted by the Nets, 10th overall. That was a great draft. Or is it 11th? 10th or 11th overall, I'm trying to remember. And they were able to build from there. So, and there's a lot of teams that have built through the draft. And so I'm not trying to say the draft is not important. I'm just saying a personal philosophy of mine is that the draft is a little bit overrated. Draft picks, that is. Excuse me. The draft picks are a little bit overrated, especially if you're a team that wants to win. And so, and because look at the players the Nets have right now where they're young players. Look at their young core that they've able to establish. I'm really excited about this Nets team. I really am. These last 5 games, they looked very good. Yes, they lost 2 of their last 5 games, but they looked good in those games, and they looked consistent, and everyone's just looking spry and playing well together, and that's what I like. And that's what I expected from this team from the beginning. But now maybe I just need a little infusion of youth. I mean, Darren Williams even said, I'm not used to being able to throw the ball up in the air and have 7 different guys catch it and dunk it. There's the oldest player on the Nets now, I believe, is Joe Johnson. I think that's true. I'm thinking about the Nets team right now. Allen Anderson, I think, is 32. Joe Johnson's 33. Now that Garnett's gone. Yeah, I think Joe Johnson's the oldest player on the Nets at age like 33 or 34. So, you know what? Then I think, let me put it this way. Billy King made a bunch of poor moves, or what became poor moves, but he's done a really good job, in my opinion, of damage control and being able to salvage those mistakes. I think this Nets team is a really solid team moving forward, and I do believe they will make the playoffs. That being said, they are on the outside looking in. They're 24-33. They are a game. Well, actually, they're tied with the Pacers, who are going to get Paul George back. That's going to be an interesting thing moving forward for them. And the Heat, I don't know if the Nets are really... To me, it's between those 3 teams. Pacers, Heat, and Nets, who are going to make the playoffs. I know Charlotte's right there, Boston, Detroit. Boston and Detroit, they're not going to make it, okay? They're just not a good enough team. Charlotte, they could make it because they do have some good, talented players. But I would never bank on Boston making it or Detroit making it. I know Detroit went on that long run, but no, I wouldn't say that. But I still think the Nets are definitely a playoff team. I still don't buy into the Bucks, who are the 6th seed. I don't think they're that good of a team. I think that they're going to slide a little bit, but they'll still probably be the 6th seed. But I'm just saying, the way the Nets are playing of late, I'm buying this team. Where will they be record-wise or playoff-wise? I don't know, but I would buy them to make the playoffs. I think that they are better than the Pacers and that they're better than the Heat. I do, especially with the team they have now. Especially with Thaddeus Young, who's been fantastic. With Markel Brown, showing some great basketball play. With Brook Lopez, other than the game against the Mavericks, playing really well. With Darren Williams, playing with this bounce that he hasn't had since the beginning of the year. Hopefully that's his last and sustains. If that doesn't sustain, the Nets might struggle again. But I'm buying this team. That being said, let's look at the next few games for the Nets. So they play tonight against Golden State. They're going to probably lose that game. I mean, last time they played them very competitively, but fell short. I don't think the Nets are going to be able to beat Golden State. But you never know, because the Nets, this team is got some, pizzazz and some confidence right now. So that game, but I'm going to just chalk it up to a loss. Then they got a big game against the Hornets. That is a big, big game. But I think the Nets should be able to win that game. I think they should. I think they're better than the Hornets. We'll see what happens, but I think that's a win. Then they got the Suns on Friday. That's not a guaranteed easy game, but I want to think that the Nets are also better than the Suns. I know the Suns have a better record and all this stuff, but the team, I think the Nets are better. I think they should win that game. Same thing with the Jazz. The next game, the Jazz actually have a worse record. On Sunday, I think the Nets should be able to win that game as well. I think they're better than the Jazz. So moving forward, the next 4 games, I expect the Nets to go 3-1, which is what they have to do if they want to make the playoffs. They have to start winning every 3 out of 5 games, or 3 out of 4 games, or 2 out of 3 games, whatever it is during the week. They've got to go 66%. If they do that, this team will make the playoffs. And I think they can. I continued through the rest of their schedule. I only counted 9 possible games that they could possibly lose. 9 games that they should lose, in my opinion, moving forward. Which would put them at 38, which would put them at 40 and 42. If they were to lose 9 more games, like I would expect them to do, they would be at 40 and 42, which I think 40 and 42 in the East should make the playoffs. That's what I'm expecting. And that's, I went through their whole, schedule earlier today and just looked at all the teams, and to me, they should only lose 9 more games. That being said, they got to continue to play well. Markel Brown's got to continue to play well. Darren Williams needs to continue to play well. Brooke Lopez, Joe Chet, the whole team needs to continue. But like I said, I'm buying this team, and I'm pretty pleased with how they're looking now. Yeah, I kind of wish they could have figured this out a little bit sooner, but you know what? Turn the page, keep going, go Nets. So, for that being said, that's what I'm thinking, and we'll see what happens. All right. So, until next week, this is NetsBoy signing off.